Hello, welcome back to another video. And this video is going to be discussing the severe weather potential for the southeastern United States over the next upcoming days, for today and for tomorrow. And I have a couple days in a row where we have slight risk or greater risk of severe weather potential. So I want to get a video out that's discussing what we're going to be looking at for the next couple of days. So if you enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe, and we'll get started. I'm going to start with the day one severe weather outlook. So that's for today. And we have an enhanced risk of severe weather from the Dallas Fort Worth area down into Waco, Texas, with a slight risk that's stretching all the way from from north central Texas and all the way down to the southeastern US coast into Georgia and South Carolina. So the slight risk includes places like Shreveport, Louisiana, Jackson and Greenville, Mississippi, all the way down through southern Alabama, south of the I-20 corridor, and then all the way to Savannah, Georgia, and Tallahassee, Florida, with a marginal risk surrounding that. And so the main threats today are going to be damaging winds and large hail. This black hatched area you see here, all the way from Texas all the way to southern Georgia, that is a region where we could see hailstones larger than 2 inches in diameter. So that's significant large hail. And so we could be seeing some hailstones larger than golf balls today down in the southeastern US. And so then as we go into tomorrow, we have an enhanced risk of severe weather from Monroe, Louisiana down into southwestern Georgia, and with a slight and marginal risk surrounding that enhanced risk. The main threats are going to be damaging winds and large hail. And you see that black hatched area again, so hailstones could be greater than 2 inches in diameter. And then there is also a low tornado threat as well for tomorrow, as storms could cross any remnant outflow boundaries from storms today and tonight. Those storms could lay an outflow boundary, and if storms cross that, sometimes that can give a little bit of enhancement to the storms, and they could produce a tornado from southern Arkansas and Monroe, Louisiana, down into Jackson, Mississippi, and down through Montgomery and Dothan, Alabama. So that's kind of those are the outlooks that we're seeing today. And for tomorrow, that helps give us some background information on what to expect. So we're going to go into what's currently happening. We're going to look at the upper level water vapor view. And we have our upper level swirl over the Great Lakes region. And then we have a strong jet stream that's streaming in some moisture from the Pacific Ocean. And that's going to be transporting moisture into the southeastern United States. We have a cluster of thunderstorms here ongoing, and we'll see how that looks on radar. And so storms are moving through the lower Mississippi Valley, and then we have some scattered showers over to the east, moving through the Tennessee Valley. And storms so far this morning have, for the most part, have been sub-severe, although there has been some occasional damaging winds and hail reports from storms in Texas and Arkansas this morning. Next, I'm going to look at the current environment and how that's setting up. So this is our 300 millibar map, and we're looking for the jet stream. We have two main branches of the jet stream. We have our first one that is located over the Ohio Valley and up through the Mid-Atlantic region. That's surrounding this upper level low that is centered over the Great Lakes. And then we have a secondary branch of the jet that is over the desert Southwest and coming into the southern United States. And so then we're going to look at 500 millibars. And then here is our upper level low that is over Michigan. And you have strong winds that are surrounding the base of this upper level low. And then we have another trough that's coming in through the Four Corners region, and also have some strong winds that are surrounding the base of that trough. And so this is helping to provide the upper level support for what we're going to have multiple rounds of thunderstorms that are going to be developing over the southern United States, and that'll be tracking through the southeastern US over the next coming days. And then we're going to look at 700 millibars for any short waves, and we do have one short wave, pretty subtle short wave, but kind of make one out here over the lower Mississippi Valley. And then we have another one that's developing that's going to be moving through the western high plains. And then that's going to be impacting the southeastern U.S. tonight and tomorrow. And then at 850 millibars, we're looking for any cyclonic curvature or cyclonic flow and a low-level jet. And we have maybe somewhat of a low-level jet over South Texas, but not really a strong one, and that's not really going to be intensifying much. So 850 millibar flow is going to be pretty weak today and tomorrow. And then as we go, we're going to look at the surface. Here we have a surface low that is over the Great Lakes region, over here. And then we have another surface low that's been kind of struggling to organize, but it's somewhere located here in southwest Texas. And then we're going to look at surface observations. I'm going to go down to the surface here. I'm going to look here in the deep south. Let me turn on the observations back on. And then, so we have our surface low that is over southwest Texas. And then we have a stalled frontal boundary that is somewhere in the vicinity, somewhere southwest, or excuse me, south of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it's going to be stretching through Louisiana and then along that I-20 corridor here. And most of the shower activity and thunderstorm activity is located north of this frontal boundary. That's going to be lifting back to the north. And so the moisture south of this boundary is pretty deep. You have a pretty broad range of 70-degree dew points located over here over the Gulf Coast region. And this is going to be advancing back to the north along this frontal boundary, and that'll really help to destabilize the atmosphere. We look at Cape values already. They're already getting pretty high in the morning. We have a pretty broad range of 1,000 to 2,000 plus joules per kilogram of Cape already. That's developing over the Gulf Coast region, and then already seeing some strong wind shear. This is our deep layer shear. We have a pretty broad range of 40 plus knot wind shear. So the wind shear is going to be pretty strong with strong instability. Could get some supercell thunderstorms that develop along some of these boundaries that are laid out, and those could have a damaging wind and large hail threat. So now that we've discussed the environmental background pattern, I'm going to try and time out some of these rounds of thunderstorms here. So this is currently what we're looking at around 10 o'clock this morning. And this is just model data, so radar may not look exactly like what you see here. This just gives us a good guideline to what to expect. So we have thunderstorms that are ongoing in northern Louisiana and some scattered hit or miss showers and thunderstorms that are in Mississippi and Alabama. So we're going to go around lunchtime. So this is around noon today. And so what may happen is storms in Louisiana will move into Mississippi, and those might form into what might be a bow echo. And so that's just what you see here. Kind of a bow echo is kind of where you have storms here that are bowing. You see a bowing segment here, and that can enhance the damaging wind potential in your thunderstorms. And so those could have a damaging wind threat. And then storms ahead of that, what you see here, what might be some scattered showers and storms, and those could produce large hail as well. And so we have storms that are going to be moving through Mississippi and Alabama early in the afternoon. And so we're going to go forward here to around 3 o'clock. And so storms are moving through southern Alabama, getting into northwest Florida, middle of the afternoon, around 3 p.m. And then around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, storms are moving out of Alabama and into Georgia by that point. And so storms today down in southern Mississippi and southern Alabama could have a threat for damaging winds up to 60 miles per hour and large hail, perhaps larger than golf balls. And so then as we go into tonight, this is around 7 o'clock, early in the evening, we could have thunderstorms that are redeveloping out here in the southern plains and in Texas, as another short wave is going to be passing through. And then those storms are going to be moving through much of the same areas that they moved through today. Those storms are going to move through over the same areas tonight. And then we're getting into the end of this model run. So I'm going to switch to a different model here and try and time out some of those storms Let's switch to this one. So this is at around 7 p.m. You have storms from earlier today. Those are going to be moving through the far southeastern U.S. And then we're going to go forward to around 10 o'clock tonight. And so storms are moving through the lower Mississippi Valley late in the evening. This is around 10 p.m. Storms are going through southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, and still back out there in Texas. And then storms that are moving through tonight, those could also lay down an outflow boundary somewhere along the I-20 corridor as the stationary front is slowly starting to push back to the north as a warm front. And that's going to be bringing up some higher moisture even into the Tennessee Valley. And so storms that could lay an outflow boundary, those could provide additional focus for thunderstorm development tomorrow. And that could also give an enhancement to storms and could potentially produce a tornado as well as damaging winds and large hail. We'll time some of these storms out that are going to happen on Wednesday. And so we're getting into the pre-dawn hours Wednesday morning here at around 2 o'clock in the morning. Storms are going through Mississippi, starting to go through Mississippi at this point, and those could have a threat for some damaging winds. And then this is about 4 o'clock in the morning. Storms have entered Alabama and are tracking through around the I-20 corridor. Now I'm going to go to about sunrise Wednesday morning. This is about 7 a.m. This is just after sunrise, and storms are going to be could be exiting Alabama and moving into Georgia by that point. And then additional showers and thunderstorms will be approaching the lower Mississippi Valley. And since we're going to be getting beyond the 24-hour period, and instead of looking at the forecast hour by hour, we're just going to look at the environment, the surrounding environment that we're going to be forecasting for Wednesday. So we're going to go switch to a different model here. This is from the most recent run from the RAP model. So we're going to get a forecast sounding here, and I'm going to start in Jackson, Mississippi. And so I'm looking at this data for the first time, so let's look at this together. So first thing to note, have a somewhat of a varying wind profile here. We have winds out of the west-southwest on the surface, and then winds kind of out of the west-northwest here in the lowest levels of the atmosphere. So the hodograph here is elongated. You do have some strong deep layer shear coming up to around 50 knots, but not a lot of curvature in that hodograph. So the tornado threat would be pretty limited in the morning. Do have some moderate instability. Have some Cape values up to around 2,000 joules per kilogram. So overall, pretty supportive. Sounding is pretty supportive for severe thunderstorms with damaging winds, maybe some large hail as well, as early as Wednesday morning down here in Mississippi. So any storms that form along any remnant outflow boundaries in Mississippi will have the potential to be severe. So I'm going to go forward here to around, let's go to around lunchtime. Okay, and storms are still going on in Alabama, so let's see if I can back up here a little bit. Let's see, this is around 11 o'clock in the morning, so I'm going to try and get a sounding here in northwest Alabama and take a look at the environment. And so we have a pretty elongated hodograph, so the hodograph here stretches all the way out to almost the end of the hodograph. It's pretty remarkable for June. And we have strong deep layer shear around 50 knots, but winds are pretty unidirectional. There's not much change in direction with height. So the tornado threat is going to be really not much of a tornado threat based on this sounding here from this model. Pretty strong, decent instability. We've got Cape up to around 1,700 joules, perhaps in North Alabama early in the morning. So we get some pretty nice destabilization. So thunderstorms that come through northern Alabama late Wednesday morning into the early afternoon could be severe with damaging winds and potentially some large hail as well. And so we're going to go forward. Let's see. I'm trying to get ahead of some of these storms. So it looks like we might get another round of storms that develop in the lower Mississippi Valley again sometime Wednesday afternoon. Once we get some clearing, I'm going to try and get sounding here from Birmingham, middle of the afternoon. And if we get some clearing Wednesday afternoon, we get temperatures to get up to around 80 degrees and our dew points in the low 70s. That's going to really destabilize our atmosphere. So the photographs, again, pretty lengthy with strong deep layered wind shear, and that's being assisted by strong upper level winds. We got deep layer shear in excess of 50 knots, and Cape values getting pretty high up there, getting up to around 2,500 joules. So it's borderline getting into the strong instability category. So a lot of instability, strong vertical shear. Directional shear is not all that strong. So probably predominantly just damaging wind and large hail threat with any storms that develop pretty much throughout the day Wednesday. So that is something to be aware of. And so I'm going to look through here maybe later in the afternoon, try and get a sounding down here in South Alabama. And so this is going to be closer to, I think, maybe one of our outflow boundaries. And so this is where we're going to have a little bit more turning in the direction with height here in our winds. See, so winds on the surface here out of the southwest, and then winds probably around 1 or 2 kilometers that are going to be out of the northwest. So a lot of changing direction with height as you go further south. And so if you get a storm that rides right along that boundary, they could potentially get some storms to rotate and maybe could produce a tornado. The tornado threat is still pretty low down south. A lot of instability down in South Alabama. Strong deep layer shear coming up in excess of 50 knots. And so overall, the general point here is the environment over much of the southeast U.S. is going to be pretty supportive for severe thunderstorms, any storms that develop pretty much at any point during the day Wednesday. So Wednesday is going to be a day to watch for a lot of activity. And so I'll have a video out tonight that might go into a little bit more of the timing and can see if we can time out any specific rounds of thunderstorms. So that's going to cover it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.